Hello, dear colleagues. Please have your seat. We are given the responsibility of making a very, very short summary of the day. So we will not kill much of your time. You are tired. And please have your seats and then we can start. So, dear colleagues, we had quite a number of sessions for the whole day, starting from 9 a.m. with opening of the CB day. Alejandro, you may come and have some word. Sure. Yeah. So, in the morning session, we had 2 sessions or 3 sessions, and I'm given the responsibility to make few summary points for the morning session. So, in the morning session, we had the opening of the CB day, and where the LDC chair, Professor Salimul Haq, Ingvild from GGGI, myself, and Gebru, the technical lead of Lifeway, have attended, and we have discussed about capacity building, its need, and how to go forward. So, we have agreed that there is no question or debate about the need for capacity building, because in the first round of NDCs, capacity building was put forward as a precondition to implementation of the NDCs. Even this request was much more than even the need for climate finance. Now the question is, and there is debate about how to go about, how we can go forward with capacity building as a process rather than as a product, ultimate. So we have to go a little business unusual under Article 11 of the Paris Agreement, because Paris Agreement capacity building article provides us kind of an opportunity and potential for a paradigm shift in the capacity building framework from the earlier traditional model of technical assistance. That model did not work. It worked to some extent, but it did not leave behind a capacity building system in our countries, what we need most. And where we come up with the kind of suggestions that universities in the LDCs and other developing countries should be the central hub of capacity building, because universities have got the minimum capacities, but we also need to build capacity of the faculty members, because climate change is an intern multidisciplinary program where most of the faculty members did not have degrees in that kind of program, because globally there is very little such programs even in the Western worlds. So we need to train faculty members, particularly young and mid-level faculty members, so that they can serve continuously as trainers. So this is one. And about the funding, for example, earlier development partners did not directly, most often, did not fund the universities, except NORAD. Few years back I'm talking about. But now development partners are coming to terms that yes, their taxpayers' money have not been spent very effectively. Millions of dollars are spent, but not much capacity building was done. So they have started now gradually coming in and started funding universities. And we have I am the technical lead of the LDC Universities Consortium on Climate Change, and we are getting noise from the development partners, including few successful bids for our projects to build capacity, starting from the communities up to the university faculty members level. Now, we need to, because capacity building as a capacious program, very expansive framework, we need to include all the stakeholders, starting from the government officials, because government officials move from one ministry to another. So we need to focus more on the technical agency people of the government ministries, because they stay and spend their whole life there. So institutional legacy will be maintained only if we focus more on the technical agency people. And then we need to also work with private sector, because private sector still is not very enthusiastic about coming into the fold of climate change, because they think that involves cost. But in climate change, kind of as a disaster, there are opportunities too. So we have to build capacity and raise awareness of the private sector leaders, and we have to show that there are opportunities for profit making, because business only comes when they get a sense of profit making. But private sector, you have to convince them that you have to come and make money with a corporate social responsibility perspective, because you cannot make profit alone if your country goes down underwater, if our countries face watery deaths. So that is what the capacity. Then we need also to build capacity of the disadvantaged groups, including women, youth, and other marginalized groups. For the women, we need to build capacity, particularly the conservative countries, for their gainful employment, so they can get out of their homes and get jobs, and with security they can do. So for this, and youth is a prime stakeholder nowadays, and because the senior generations are failing. COP negotiations outcome, you see, I have been attending for the last 20 years, and it's a process of active inaction. I use this expression that climate negotiations is kind of a process of active inaction, but we have to live with it, because it's a multi-stakeholder process involving 197 parties. So we have to reach decisions on a minimum common denominator basis. So we have to stick to the negotiation, because we have no alternative. Multilateralism is the only option in a globalized world. And finally, I think we have to build capacity of the youth, as I mentioned. So this is what I wanted to share. Thank you. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mizan, for this impressive summary of the first 3 sessions of the day, which also highlighted the need for capacity building at all fronts. And I think this is what was continued then in the afternoon sessions. I hope most of you would still have the last one fresh in your mind, so I won't touch upon that very much again, but there we highlighted the need to also do capacity building and sharing by means of coalition building and bringing together new actors in cities which are already facing the disastrous impacts of climate change, and that is where the involved partners on the panel, WRI, IIED, and UNU-EHS, my organization, the United Nations University, are very much willing to do that together in a project, but also much beyond that. So that was on cities, but then there were also 2 very impressive other sessions earlier in the afternoon, with the first one on partnerships to address climate and biodiversity crisis by means of finance models for indigenous people and local communities. Mizan already touched upon the local communities, and also supporting indigenous people and groups by accessible finance, and also access of women to finance particularly is key, and that is worth nothing, however, if it's not embedded in a more broader governance and integration scheme. So we need that at multiple scale, and scale was also one of the topics of the days. So capacitation across scales, across groups, and that was also being highlighted then in the learnings and recommendations, that there is no climate ambition without the local communities, but adequate finance at scale and accessible climate finance is very much needed. However, one of the challenges tackled was also the expectation management and then the accountability. And I think that narrative then went on to the second session of the afternoon, which focused exactly on women's leadership and adaptation action. So we've heard already from predecessors that it's key to involve female in decision-making, in leadership. However, throughout the day, and maybe also here at COP sometimes, these are nice words, but what is actually happening? And there are very nice examples and case studies were highlighted. And that's also what was mentioned throughout the session, that it takes documents, it takes stories to inspire people. There needs to be worked also across different backgrounds. And to do also relationships across different groups, relationships also with the environment, because very often it's the female who might face the impacts of climate change first, who might be suffering most, but they have the least access then to finances and also to capacities and to networking across or beyond their maybe sometimes smaller village or regional networks, but to give them access also to decision making, and what I like very much also, access beyond, access to speak their mind up to conferences like here, what we've already seen here today and also in other sessions. And I think with that I would conclude. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your excellent summary. So, Alejandro, you have the last word as the leader of the UNU-EHS.
No, thank you, Ms. Ann, and thank you for the very exhaustive and comprehensive summary of the day. I think we're now ready to proceed to the closing of the formal discussions and the beginning of the formal opening of this fourth capacity building hub.